pretty interesting when you think about some of the most extensive cover-ups and conspiracy theories in the world history. From UFOs to assassinations to lost treasures. There's been so many things that with conspiracies and with just regular thought that people have been able to use throughout the years and put throughout the internet and have their own sort of peer-to-peer discussion. And so something that we're going to get into today that a lot of people over the years have been talking about is the assassination of former President John F. Kennedy is a conspiracy within a conspiracy. You have so many different possibilities of what could have happened that day in 1963. And there are just so many strange scenarios and questions surrounding what actually happened. So this is the official story and the common mainstream narrative surrounding the JFK assassination. So on November 22nd, 1963, John F. Kennedy was assassinated while riding in a motorcade through the Dealey Plaza in downtown Dallas, Texas. A little after noon, President Kennedy and his political team were getting ready for the upcoming presidential campaign in the fall of 1963. Even though he hadn't officially announced his candidacy, it was pretty clear that he intended to run again and was really optimistic about his chances. And in late September, Kennedy traveled to several states in the West within a week, highlighting natural resources and conservation, while also testing campaign themes like education, national security, and world peace for the 1964 election. He then addressed Democratic gatherings in Boston and Philadelphia a month later. On November 12th, he held a crucial political planning session, emphasizing the importance of winning Florida and Texas. He planned to visit both of these states over the next 2 weeks with his wife Jacqueline Kennedy accompanying him. The presidential party then flew to Dallas where crowds welcomed them. The Kennedys, alongside with Texas officials, entered an open convertible motorcade throughout downtown Dallas. Tragedy struck as gunfire rang out the Texas School Book Depository. President Kennedy and Governor Connally were hit. The president was rushed to the Parkland Memorial Hospital and was pronounced dead at 1 p.m. Despite being seriously injured, Governor Connally survived. At 2:38 p.m., a somber Lyndon B. Johnson then took the oath of office aboard Air Force One. Lee Harvey Oswald, an employee at the book depository, was arrested for the assassination and the subsequent fatal shooting of a police officer. Oswald was then transferred on November 24th, but he was then shot by Jack Ruby, a local nightclub owner, on live television, and then Oswald then died a few hours later. So that's the official narrative. Kennedy, going through his motorcade, was shot out the window by Lee Harvey Oswald, who was known to have military experience with the USSR and haven't fully been able to prove it yet, but it's very likely that Lee Harvey Oswald was working for the Central Intelligence Agency. So there have been many rumors and conspiracies of who might be responsible for this assassination. Some have said the United States, some have said Israel, some have said USSR, Russia, and even some have gone as far to say that China was somehow involved. So what we do know about John F. Kennedy before he was assassinated is that he did not want to go to war with Vietnam, and he was really trying to do everything he could to make sure we didn't have to send troops and billions of dollars to go fund a war like that. And his opposers were against that and wanted to start a war because it was profitable for them, and they felt that there was something to gain. Now, taking out John F. Kennedy would definitely be a step in that direction if you were opposing his idea of not wanting to go to war. If you were in favor of that idea, wouldn't it be the easiest to take out the political opposition? He had a pretty large degree of influence politically and publicly. A lot of people liked him. So he definitely posed a threat to his opposition and the government itself, which was really eager to get into war. You think how that relates to people and figures now with Donald Trump, Andrew Tate, Alex Jones, people who the establishment disagrees with and will do anything they can to silence him and all but kill them. But here with JFK, they went to the fullest extent. They actually took him out. What they want you to believe is that there was one lone gunman acting alone with no sort of outside motivation, other than that he was a crazy person that wanted to take out the president, and he was this Russian spy. I'm not really buying it. I'm also not buying that he was the only person that was actually there at the time planning to assassinate Kennedy and actually get gunfire off. Do you see the United States motive to get rid of Kennedy? Kennedy was then wiped out, Lyndon B. Johnson was elected, took over office, and then that's when we saw the Vietnam War start and spiral from 55 to 75. And they accomplished what they wanted there. So I don't believe the United States was acting alone here. I think there were other countries that at least played a small part in the assassination of President Kennedy. And that other country, I believe, is Israel. Now, why do you think Israel would be involved here? It's a strange question, you might ask. What would the Israelis have anything to do with a 1963 U.S. presidential election? Well, here's why. So JFK, also on top of not wanting to go to war with Vietnam, well, he also opposed and tried to deter the Israelis, or the country of Israel, from wanting to create these bioweapons and get into nuclear warfare. He was about peace, did not want anything to do with bioweapons and nuclear warfare, so he actually made an attempt to shut that down and completely oppose their idea. So he knew that a large globalist influence like the United States, or the country of Israel knew that a large globalist influence like the United States would be such a threat and would make it so much harder for them to proceed in their bioweapons, with the United States having so many treaties and agreements with other countries. So that's their incentive for having JFK out of the way. So you have the United States, or at least the corrupt part of the United States, and the CIA. And you have also the Israelis with a common enemy, JFK. Now, both of them collaborating together, and again, it's very unclear who these exact people are, but both of them collaborating secretly and using someone else as a pawn, like Lee Harvey Oswald, who was completely unrelated and a USSR type of deal. They could use someone like him and put all the attention there, and not only use him, but that very person that was the alleged shooter wasn't even alive for more than a few days to tell the story of what actually happened and who put him up to it. So it's pretty clear that it was a complete cover-up.
Men were waiting for Oswald to come down an elevator there to the right to be transferred to another jail. A man named Ruby was waiting too. The scene began with the familiar routine of news coverage of public events. The officers come down. There goes Ruby toward Oswald. He's firing. Oswald slumps to the floor. And as he does, the police officers beside him leap upon Ruby.
Again, there's a lot of questions we still need to figure out, a lot of answers we don't know. And this is probably something that's going to go on for the next 100 years. As I said, all the documents haven't even been released yet. I remember back in 2017, there were about several thousand new documents that they released for this case. And it was just hundreds and hundreds and thousands of pages that was really it was open to interpretation. It wasn't exactly clear, but there's more and more information we're finding out. Like I said, the Israelis were going through JFK's mail months prior to his assassination. They were spying on him. They were clearly paying attention because they knew if he's elected, he's a threat. Now, did they 100% kill him because of that? Again, it's still unclear. We can only assume and speculate who is actually behind this, but from what I've seen and everything that I've soaked in from this case, I firmly believe that the United States government was involved, as well was the Israeli government. Now, when it comes to other countries, like I said, I can only speculate. I do not know that if any other countries were involved, but I think it's very possible, and it's likely that a country like Russia, China, could have had some sort of play, maybe in logistics or some sort of communication when it comes to that, or maybe had some information that was detrimental to the cover-up that the United States was trying to impose on the people. And it seemed it was definitely an elaborate scheme, and they got away with it for some time, but we see a lot of people starting to wake up. We see so many conspiracy theorists be right over and over again, and it's like a pattern. It's all these very strange cover-ups that seem like they're really fishy. But like I said, there's new information being released every single day, and it can't all be released at once because the establishment has to protect the public figures and individuals who are on the good boys team and who they protect in their little group, because if they're exposed for having any involvement in this assassination, then it would look pretty bad in the United States and would definitely question their credibility, as many already have. So if something like that comes to light, if something like that is exposed and they're found guilty, then without question that's going to definitely shake the trust of what the people see in these three-letter agencies and the government in general. And like I said, we're going to see in the future, I think we're going to see a lot of exposed individuals when it comes to things like this. And it's also interesting with RFK Jr. running. You know, obviously JFK was assassinated, his father was assassinated. So you got to think, what's going to happen if RFK Jr. gets elected? Do you think that he will also be assassinated? Because this is a public conversation we need to have. I mean, like I said, history repeats itself, and RFK notably claims that the CIA had been involved and was responsible for the murder of his uncle and father. So if that doesn't pose a threat to the establishment, then I don't know what does. So we'll have to see what happens there. I don't want to make any predictions, but if he is elected, I think we're going to see something really strange happen. That's my current stance on the JFK assassination. Like I said, there's going to be new evidence coming to light as time goes on, and you can paraphrase that information and everything you see and interpret in your own way what you think happened to John F. Kennedy on November 22nd, 1963. Thanks for tuning in. We'll be back with another episode this weekend. We're going to get into finance. We're going to talk about Bitcoin, and a lot of interesting things are going on in the financial world. So stay tuned for that, and we'll see you next time.